She made a promise, one she guarded with quiet defiance in a world that mocked purity and prized performance. Her body was her vow, her gift to the man she would one day love without fear. But a single night, wrapped in flashing lights and betrayal, shattered everything. Now, with nothing but a broken vow, a growing secret inside her, and silence from the man who unknowingly took everything, Anita must piece together a life that's no longer hers. But what happens when survival becomes her only language, and forgiveness a door she cannot open? Hello family, welcome to True Life Stories. Please subscribe and leave a like for us, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Anita sat at the edge of her bed, sunlight filtering through the pale curtains of her small, neatly arranged bedroom. Her fingers gently caressed the pages of the leather-bound journal that had become her quiet confidant over the years. She had written in it since she was 16. Pages filled with poetry, thoughts, dreams, and promises. One of them, perhaps the most sacred, she had never broken. I will give my body only to the man I marry. It is my gift of love. She believed in it deeply. Not because anyone forced it on her. Not because of religion or fear. But because it was hers. Her choice. Her power. She had seen enough broken hearts and morning after tears in the stories of girls around her to know what she didn't want. She wanted love that was patient, intentional. Love that waited. Her phone buzzed. A message from Linda lit up the screen. Girl, I just broke up with Kelvin. I swear I'm done with men. I need drinks tonight. You in? Anita smiled gently and shook her head. Linda was a whirlwind, beautiful, wild, loud, and undeniably charismatic. She'd had more boyfriends than Anita had pens in her drawer. Every breakup came with fireworks and drama, but Linda always bounced back, sometimes stronger, sometimes just more wounded. Still, Anita loved her like a sister. They had been friends since high school. While they shared late-night ice cream sessions and movie marathons, their values clashed often. Especially about love and sex. Linda had rolled her eyes countless times at Anita's virgin talk. You really gonna keep that thing locked up till marriage? She once said during a sleepover, tossing popcorn at her. Yes, Anita replied without flinching. It's mine to give, not to waste. You sound like a nun, Linda scoffed. What if you marry someone and the sex is trash? I'll cross that bridge when I get there. I'm not afraid of bad sex. I'm afraid of giving myself to someone who doesn't deserve me. Linda had fallen silent after that, her expression unreadable. A flicker of something, maybe envy, maybe confusion, passed over her face before she laughed it off. Well, I guess someone has to be the unicorn. In private moments, Anita sometimes wondered if she was being too idealistic. The world didn't seem to value what she did. But she always returned to her truth. She didn't know anyone her body, no matter how modern the world had become. That night, she scribbled in her journal again. I will wait, not because I am afraid of the world, but because I am certain of my worth. My body, my soul, my love, it will not be bartered, only offered freely, wholly, to the one who is worthy. Outside, the city buzzed as it always did. Parties, hookups, heartbreaks. But inside that room, Anita held to her promise like a quiet light, small but unshakable. She didn't know it yet, but that promise would be tested in the cruelest way. And though the world would try to break her, it would never take away the truth of who she was. Friday had never felt so long. Anita sat through her final lecture of the day, her notes meticulous as usual. Her pen moved in soft, even strokes as the professor spoke about social structures and modern identity. She was present, but somewhere inside she was distracted. Linda had been texting her all day, about outfits, makeup, and tonight. Linda's latest breakup had been loud. She had stormed out of her boyfriend's apartment 2 nights ago and made it her mission to let loose for the weekend. And Anita had been her chosen target for company. When the class ended, Anita checked her phone again. Linda at 4:32 p.m. Girl, don't bail on me. I need you tonight. 1 hour. Just one. You promised to be more spontaneous this year. Anita sighed and replied. Anita, 4:34 p.m. Linda, I'm not sure clubs are my thing. And I don't want to be out late. I have my shift tomorrow. Linda, 4:34 p.m. 1 hour. Promise. No pressure. I'll even pay for your drink. You'll wear that black dress I like. I'm picking you up at 9. No excuses. Love you. There it was, Linda's classic blend of guilt-tripping and affection. Anita chuckled to herself. She had already learned that saying no to Linda meant multiple voice notes, memes, and maybe even an unexpected visit. She closed her notebook and made her way home through the early evening crowd. The city was alive, cars honking, vendors calling, the air thick with that unmistakable mix of spice, sweat, and ambition. By 8:30 p.m., Anita stood in front of her mirror. The black dress Linda liked was tight, but not revealing. Her hair was pulled into soft curls, her face bare of makeup except for a gloss that shimmered under the yellow light bulb overhead. She didn't feel excited. She felt unsure. She stared at her reflection. Just 1 hour, she whispered. A loud honk startled her. Linda's car. The ride was filled with Linda's energy. She wore a red crop top and ripped jeans, face painted like a magazine cover. Her perfume filled the car, fruity and strong. The windows were down. The music was loud. I'm so glad you didn't bail. Linda shouted over the song. I'm still not sure about this, Anita replied, voice low. Oh, come on. Live a little. You'll be out by 10. I swear. The club was packed when they arrived. Neon lights pulsed against the dark walls. People danced with a kind of reckless joy Anita had never seen outside of movies. The air was electric, sweaty, smoky, wild. I'll get us drinks, Linda yelled. Anita made her way to a quieter corner, her eyes wide, her senses overwhelmed. Music thumped through her chest. She felt like a foreigner in a different country. This was not her world. Linda returned, holding 2 glasses. Coke for you, she said, handing Anita the drink. Tequila for me. Anita smiled nervously. She took a sip. Cool. Sweet. A little fizzy. Maybe a bit bitter. But she figured club drinks always tasted weird. I'll go say hi to a friend I spotted, Linda said with a wink. Back soon. Anita nodded and kept sipping. She watched the crowd with hesitant curiosity. Some danced with abandon, others moved in tight, suggestive sways. The lights spun, the bass shook the floor. It was all surreal. Then she started to feel strange. It was slow at first. A warmth in her chest. Then dizziness. The edges of her vision softened. Her body felt heavy and light at the same time. Her heart rate picked up. She blinked. Everything looked dreamlike now. Like she was floating. She didn't notice Linda watching from across the room. Smiling, then vanishing into the crowd. Her cup was half empty. A man approached. She didn't know his name. He said something, but it came out muffled like underwater. She laughed without knowing why. Her head tilted back. She danced. Someone else joined her. Then another. Her arms moved. Her hips swayed. She wasn't in control anymore. She didn't see Linda whispering to the tall man with the smooth voice and sharp jawline. She didn't hear what Linda said. But he walked up to her. And she followed him. Like a shadow, melting into the dark. The lights were dancing on the ceiling. Or maybe it was the floor. Anita couldn't quite tell anymore. She blinked slowly, her lashes brushing against her cheeks as her head swayed to the deep thump of the bass. Something inside her felt loose. Unanchored. Her body hummed, light and warm, and every sound around her seemed distant, like an echo down a long hallway. She opened her mouth to speak, but forgot what she was going to say. Anita, someone called, but it didn't sound like her name anymore. It sounded like an idea. A memory. She turned. A guy with dark eyes and a confident smile stood in front of her, tall and broad-shouldered. He looked expensive, black button-down shirt, silver watch that caught the strobe lights. She didn't know his name. Didn't even know how he got there. But she smiled anyway, something unfamiliar and reckless twisting in her chest. He leaned in close, his cologne a cocktail of musk and amber. You look like you could use some fun, he said near her ear, his voice smooth, amused. She laughed, a soft, involuntary giggle, and nodded. She didn't even know what he meant. Her drink was nearly finished. The taste of Coke lingered on her lips, but something about it had felt off. Bitter. Metallic. She couldn't place it. Didn't want to. She was spinning again. The guy, his name was Darius, though she wouldn't remember it until much later, placed a hand on her lower back and guided her toward the dance floor. She didn't resist. She didn't even realize she was moving until she felt the bodies brushing against her from every side, the heat of the crowd pressing in like walls. He danced close. Too close. His breath ghosted her neck as he moved with practiced ease, his hands never venturing too far, never too fast, but always there. Anita moved too, not quite herself, not quite present. Her head tilted back once, and for a second, she caught a glimpse of Linda leaning against the bar, laughing with a guy, sipping her tequila like nothing in the world mattered. Their eyes met briefly. Linda raised her glass in a mock toast. Anita blinked, and the moment was gone. Back on the dance floor, Darius leaned in again, closer this time. His voice was low, but clear, cutting through the fog in her mind. "You want to get out of here?" Anita frowned slightly. The question floated toward her like a balloon. She blinked. He repeated it slower, softer, like a secret. "Do you want to come with me?" Her lips parted. She tried to process the words. They didn't land. But the voice, it was soothing. Gentle. She nodded before her brain had finished understanding what she was agreeing to. He smiled. That was all the answer he needed. He took her hand, and she followed, the lights growing dimmer behind her, the music fading into a muffled pulse. She didn't look back. She didn't see Linda watching from across the club, arms folded, a triumphant glint in her eyes. Outside, the air hit her like a slow slap, cool, heavy with exhaust and neon. Darius' car was sleek, black, expensive. She sank into the passenger seat, the leather cool against her skin. She closed her eyes. Everything was soft now. The ride was quiet. When they arrived at the hotel, she barely noticed the valet, the elevator, the key card beep. The room was luxurious. High windows, silk sheets, city lights twinkling far below. Darius helped her to the bed. "Are you okay?" he asked, brushing her hair from her face. She nodded, or thought she did. His touch was gentle at first. His lips brushed hers, tentative. Then bolder. She didn't speak. She didn't stop him. But she didn't understand. Not really. Clothes disappeared. His breath grew heavier. Hers was shallow, unfocused. Then something changed. A pause. A whisper in the dark. He froze. She flinched. He pulled back, staring at her. What the hell? His eyes widened with realization. She was a virgin. It was unmistakable. Darius sat up slowly, dragging his hands down his face. His mind raced. Shame clawed at his throat. He looked at her, still lying there, dazed, silent, confused. He didn't know what to do. He hadn't planned this. He hadn't known. God, he hadn't known. He dressed quietly, his movements sharp with guilt. He opened his wallet, pulled out a stack of bills, $2,000, and placed it on the bedside table. He grabbed the notepad from the hotel drawer and scribbled 2 words. "I'm sorry." Then he left. The door clicked shut behind him. And Anita, still tangled in silk sheets, floated in a silence so deep, so vast, that she could no longer hear her own heart. The morning came in softly, its arrival marked not by alarm clocks or birdsong, but by the pale golden light slipping between the cracks of floor-to-ceiling curtains. Anita stirred. Her head pounded with a strange, hollow rhythm. Her eyes fluttered open, lids heavy, lashes sticking together. The air smelled unfamiliar, expensive, clean, sterile. She blinked again. A soft ceiling above her. A high ceiling. White. Nothing like her room. Her brows furrowed as confusion pressed in. She tried to sit up, but the ache between her thighs stopped her short. A sharp foreign pain. Her hands instinctively gripped the sheet, dragging it over her chest as she slowly pushed herself upright. Her dress, no longer on her. A man's button-down shirt was wrapped loosely around her frame. Her bra lay crumpled beside the bed. Her underwear gone. A scream began to rise in her throat, but it never left her lips. She felt frozen, like her body no longer belonged to her. Her hands shook as she pulled the shirt tighter around herself, heart hammering against her ribs. Then she saw it. The envelope. Neat. Resting by the pillow, just beside a cold glass of water and a folded piece of paper torn from a hotel notepad. On the envelope, in thick black ink, for you. She reached out slowly, like she was touching something that might explode. Inside, a neat stack of cash. Her hands trembled harder. On the folded paper. I'm sorry. No name. No explanation. Just 2 words. That's when it hit her. The memory didn't come in full. It came in flashes, colorless, soundless, violent in their incompleteness. The club. Linda handing her the drink. The warmth spreading in her limbs. The music becoming distant. A man's voice. A car. A kiss. Skin. Pain. Silence. Anita doubled over, gasping. Her chest heaved, her stomach twisted. She stumbled to her feet, nearly falling as her legs buckled. She rushed to the bathroom and collapsed to her knees beside the toilet, vomiting until her throat burned, and there was nothing left but air and dry sobs. She gripped the rim of the sink and looked into the mirror. The girl staring back was not her. Red eyes, smudged makeup, bruised lips, a scratch on her shoulder she didn't remember getting. She started to cry, slow at first, then uncontrollably. The sobs tore from her, echoing in the marble walls of the hotel bathroom. Her body felt foreign, violated. The sense of loss went beyond flesh. It pierced something sacred in her spirit. I was saving it. The words screamed in her mind like a broken record. I was saving it. The taxi ride home was a blur. She had slipped out of the hotel wrapped in shame, the envelope stuffed into her handbag like a curse she couldn't let go of. She didn't even know where she was when she called the ride, just gave her home address in a voice that barely worked. She kept her head down as the car moved through the busy Saturday streets. She didn't speak. She barely breathed. The world outside the window moved, oblivious. Children playing. Couples walking hand in hand. Normal life. She felt miles beneath it all. When she got home, her room felt like a stranger's space. Her bed too neat. Her mirror too honest. She dropped her bag on the floor and sat on the edge of her mattress like she was balancing on the edge of a cliff. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Linda. Linda, hope you got home safe. Last night was wild. You were dancing like a queen. Anita stared at the message, her mouth slightly open. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Anita, what happened last night? The reply came too fast. Linda, you left with that fine guy. Tall. Black shirt. You were into him. I didn't want to interrupt, winking face. Anita, I don't remember saying yes. The typing bubbles blinked. Linda, girl, you were vibing. Don't make it weird. You literally smiled and followed him. You're not a baby, Anita. A scream built in Anita's throat but died there. Her hands clenched the phone so tightly she thought it might snap. She threw it across the room. It hit the wall and fell face down, buzzing again. She didn't check it. She lay back on her bed and curled into herself. Like a child. Like someone broken. She cried until she couldn't. And in that awful, hollow silence, a new kind of pain settled deep inside her chest. Not the pain of losing something, but the pain of knowing someone had taken it. And her best friend had helped. The light in Anita's room was dim and steady. The sun had long passed its peak, but she hadn't moved from her bed since returning home. The sheets clung to her skin like guilt. Her limbs were heavy, like they had absorbed the weight of what had happened. She lay on her side, eyes wide open, staring at the crack in the ceiling as though it might offer answers she couldn't find anywhere else. There were no more tears left. Only silence. And in that silence, her thoughts screamed. Every piece of her memory clawed its way back in fragments. Linda handing her the Coke, the strange aftertaste, the buzzing in her ears, the blurring of sound and reason. The man, his hand in hers. The lights passing by in the car window. The soft hotel sheets. His voice, asking questions she couldn't answer. Her nod. the confusion, the pain. Her body remembered what her mind still struggled to make sense of. She had never said yes, not truly, not clearly, not soberly. And yet it had happened. A slow nausea built in her throat again, but she forced it down. She was done vomiting. Her stomach had emptied hours ago. Now only the hollow ache of shame remained. Her phone lay face down on the floor where she had thrown it. She picked it up with trembling fingers, unlocked it, and reread Linda's message. Girl, you were vibing. Don't make it weird. You literally smiled and followed him. You're not a baby, Anita. Her heart twisted. Her chest tightened. Her mind screamed again. Not a baby? She hadn't been in control. She hadn't even been aware. What kind of friend saw her in that state and let her go with a stranger? No, sent her with one? Was it jealousy? Had Linda meant for this to happen? A memory surfaced, sharper now than before. Linda, at the club bar, looking directly at her, raising her glass in mock celebration. That knowing smirk. That satisfied look. Like she had won something. Anita sat up slowly. She opened her journal, the same one that had held her thoughts for years. Her dreams. Her promise. She flipped to the last entry, her own handwriting staring back at her. I will wait, not because I am afraid of the world, but because I am certain of my worth. Her throat closed. Her eyes burned. She grabbed a pen and scrawled underneath the line, shaking. I didn't give it away. It was taken. She slammed the journal shut and held it to her chest like a child with a lifeline. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. The silence in the room wasn't peaceful. It was accusatory. A knock came at the door. Anita, her mother called. You didn't come out for breakfast. She didn't respond. Another knock. Softer. Are you okay? I'm fine, Anita managed to say, voice hoarse. She didn't want to see anyone. Not her mother. Not her father. Not even her reflection. The door creaked open slightly. Her mother peeked in. She must have seen her daughter's red eyes, the pallor of her skin, the limpness in her limbs. But she didn't ask questions. She stepped inside, gently laid a plate of rice and stew on the side table, and kissed Anita's forehead. You didn't sleep well, she whispered. Anita didn't answer. Her mother gave her a long look, part concern, part confusion, but left without pressing. When the door clicked shut again, Anita let the tears come silently. Hot, shameful, endless. She didn't touch the food. She didn't speak to anyone that day. Or the next. But on the third day, something shifted. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, looked herself in the eye, and whispered, No one will fix this for me. Then she picked up her phone. She called Linda. The line rang. Once. Twice. Then clicked. Girl, where have you been? Linda's voice was breezy, oblivious. Anita's voice was flat. We need to talk. A pause. About what? About what you did to me. Another pause. Longer. Sharper. I didn't do anything to you, Linda said, now defensive. Don't start acting like. I was drugged. You were drunk. I don't drink. You know that. Linda scoffed, but it lacked conviction. You were fine. You were dancing. You left with him. You literally said yes. I wasn't in control, Anita said, her voice cracking. You knew I didn't know what I was doing. Silence again. You're making this too deep, Linda finally muttered. Anita let the silence between them stretch. Deep. Cold. Final. I trusted you, she whispered. And you watched me fall. She hung up. This time, the silence in her room wasn't empty. It was the beginning of a choice. She didn't know what came next. But she knew one thing. She would never be that trusting girl again. The first wave of nausea came 2 weeks later. It was sharp and sudden, twisting her insides before she even made it to the bathroom. Anita clutched the sink, her knuckles white as her stomach convulsed. She spat out bile, trembling, her forehead damp with sweat. She sat on the floor afterward, knees pulled to her chest rising and falling too fast, too shallow. The room swayed around her. It happened again the next day. And again 2 mornings after that. She tried to explain it away, maybe stress, maybe bad food. Her body had been through a storm, and maybe it hadn't recovered. But something deeper stirred inside her. A knowing. A fear too terrifying to name. The moment she picked up the pregnancy test in the pharmacy, her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She wore a hoodie, head down, avoiding eye contact with anyone around. When the pharmacist asked, "Do you want a bag?" she nodded without speaking. Her voice had stopped being useful since that night. She waited until the house was quiet. Her parents were out. She locked the bathroom door, slid to the floor, and opened the box with trembling fingers. Minutes later, she stood frozen. 2 pink lines stared back at her. Pregnant. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Not at first. She just stared, like the world had cracked in two, and she was looking into the abyss. And then came the unraveling. She sunk to the cold tile floor, wrapped her arms around herself, and wept. Got deep sobs. The kind that came from places too raw to name. She rocked back and forth, whispering to herself, "No, no, no, no." The weight of it crushed her. This wasn't just about her virginity anymore. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was a life. Inside her. The result of a night she hadn't chosen. The next days passed in a fog. She didn't tell anyone. She walked through the house like a ghost, eyes empty, voice barely above a whisper. Her mother noticed, asked questions Anita couldn't answer. Her father frowned more than usual, mistaking her quiet for teenage angst. She couldn't stay. She couldn't bring shame to their door. Not when they had trusted her, loved her, raised her to believe in herself. She couldn't bear to see disappointment in their eyes, or worse, pity. So she left. She wrote a note the night before. "I'm okay. Please don't look for me. I just need time." She packed a small bag, clothes, journal, the remaining money from the hotel envelope. It made her stomach turn every time she touched that money, but she couldn't deny it was the only thing keeping her afloat. She texted the one person she thought might help. Sandra, a distant friend from her university days. Not close, but kind-hearted. The kind who always asked if you made it home safe after parties. The kind who didn't judge. When Sandra opened her door the next morning, she didn't ask questions. She took one look at Anita, pale, sunken-eyed, clutching her stomach, and stepped aside. "Come in." And just like that, Anita collapsed into the arms of someone who hadn't betrayed her. Someone who didn't demand explanations. Sandra offered her the small guest room and a warm meal. Anita barely touched the food but managed a weak, "Thank you." "You can stay here as long as you need," Sandra said softly, placing a hand on her back. "And when you're ready to talk, I'll listen." Anita nodded, but she wasn't ready. Not yet. The days that followed were hard. She took odd jobs, cleaning, helping in a salon, waitressing in a cafe that paid in cash and didn't ask questions. Her feet ached. Her back hurt. But she endured. Every morning she woke up, gripped by anxiety, her hand instinctively resting on her belly. It was still small, just a bump, but it was growing. Quietly, steadily. So she worked. She saved. She survived. At night, she would lie awake and press her hand over her abdomen. "I didn't ask for you," she whispered once in the dark. "But you're here now." She didn't know if she loved the child yet. She didn't even know if she had the strength to raise one. But she knew this, she wouldn't abandon it. Not after everything she had already lost. One night, as she was folding laundry, Sandra spoke gently from the doorway. "You're stronger than you think." Anita looked up, startled. Sandra smiled. "You're still standing." Anita didn't smile back. But she nodded. Because she was. Somewhere in her, something was shifting. Not healing, not yet. But hardening. Forming new steel where soft flesh used to be. She would survive this. For the child. For herself. The air in the city was thick with noise. Horns, footsteps, vendors shouting over each other. The chaotic rhythm of a place that never slowed down. It matched the beat of Anita's days now. Constant, demanding, relentless. She woke each morning before dawn. The small guest room Sandra gave her smelled faintly of lavender and old paint. The ceiling fan clicked when it spun, like it had a secret it wanted to tell. She lay in bed for a moment each morning, hand over her belly, listening to the silence before the storm. Then she rose, dressed quickly, and left with her bag slung over her shoulder. Her first job was at a corner cafe, tiny, tucked behind a bookstore, owned by a tired couple in their late 40s who barely spoke English, but appreciated her punctuality. She washed dishes there, cleaned tables, mopped the floors. Her hands were always raw by the time she left. By mid-morning, she walked 20 minutes across town to her second job, a makeshift boutique that paid her to fold clothes, tag them, and carry heavy boxes up a narrow staircase that made her knees ache. Her boss was kind but distant, always chewing gum and shouting on the phone. He barely noticed when she winced from the strain of lifting boxes with her growing belly. Her evenings were split between rest and dread. She'd lie in Sandra's guest room, muscles aching, eyes burning, legs swollen, but mind still racing. She couldn't afford to stop. She was saving every naira she could, carefully slipping cash into a zippered pouch she kept hidden under the mattress. She'd labeled the pouch in small black letters. For us. She wasn't showing much yet. At around 3 months, her bump was a soft curve, just enough to notice if you looked, just enough to hide under loose clothes. But she felt it, the tightness, the fatigue, the strange sense that someone else was in her body, growing silently, making space for themselves inside her ribs. Sometimes, while waiting for the bus home, she'd place a hand protectively over her stomach. Not for comfort, for assurance, to remind herself that there was a reason she was still standing. She didn't complain, even when her ankles swelled or her fingers cramped from cleaning grease off cafe pans. She didn't tell Sandra the details of what happened. Not yet, but Sandra seemed to understand without needing to know. She always left a warm plate on the table at night. Always checked in without prying. One day, after Anita came back late from work, Sandra sat her down at the small table with a bowl of yam porridge and a glass of warm milk. "You can't keep doing this on your own," she said gently, handing her a spoon. Anita didn't look up. "I don't have a choice." "You always have a choice. Let me help." "You are helping," Anita said, voice steady. "You gave me a place to stay. I mean more than that. I don't want pity, Sandra. It's not pity. It's care." That silenced them both for a while. Then Sandra reached across the table and placed her hand over Anita's. "You don't have to fight so hard to be okay. It's okay not to be." Anita blinked fast, swallowing the lump rising in her throat. She hated crying in front of people. It felt like surrender, and she wasn't ready to surrender. Instead, she nodded and ate slowly. The food tasted like something that mattered. That night, after her shower, she stood in front of the mirror, towel wrapped around her middle. She stared at the small bump pushing against her skin and whispered, "I'm trying." The baby didn't answer, but something inside her softened. She didn't know what the future looked like yet. Didn't know how long she could keep this up. But she knew this, she wouldn't quit. Not for the girl she had been. Not for the baby she was carrying. Not for the man who had disappeared with a note and 2,000 naira notes in a white envelope. She didn't need saving. She needed a way forward. And she was building it, one hard, painful, necessary step at a time. The clouds hung low over Lagos that evening, pregnant with rain that had been threatening all afternoon. The air was humid and impatient. Every step on the sidewalk seemed to press into something damp and reluctant. Anita stood under the overhang of a tall glass building in Victoria Island, clutching a brown paper bag with 2 plastic containers of jollof rice and fried plantain inside. The delivery job wasn't official. Just a side hustle Sandra had helped her find through a friend who worked with a catering outfit. The money wasn't great, but it kept her moving. Kept her useful. She looked up at the skyscraper, uneasy. Darren Industries. Big name. Big men in suits walking in and out. The kind of place she would have once admired from afar, too clean and polished for someone like her. She adjusted the scarf around her shoulders, tugged her blouse lower to cover her growing belly. The wind picked up, and with it the first drops of rain. "Delivery for Mr. Darren," she said to the security guard at the front desk. She showed him the receipt with the floor number scribbled in quick ink. He barely looked at her. 17th floor. Just take the elevator. The lift opened with a soft chime, and she stepped in, suddenly aware of her reflection in the mirrored walls. Tired eyes. Hands dry from too much detergent. She pressed the button and avoided looking at herself too long. When the elevator doors slid open, she stepped onto a floor that felt like a different world. White marble floors. Glass doors. Elegant lighting. The smell of leather and cologne. She hesitated at the threshold of the reception area, unsure if she belonged in a space so still and manicured. "Miss, are you from Palms Catering?" A receptionist asked politely. Anita nodded. "Mr. Daron is expecting that. You can go right through." "He ordered this himself?" She thought. "A man like that." She carried the bag down the hall and knocked once on the door at the end. "Come in," a deep voice called. She stepped inside. He was standing by the window, tall and commanding in a gray tailored suit. His back was to her. The skyline glittered behind him, scattered lights glowing through the light rain. "I brought your order," she said, voice quiet but clear. He turned. Their eyes met. And in that second, the world cracked. His face changed. She froze. It was him. The man from that night. The man she had followed blindly into the dark. The man who had left her in a hotel room with a note that said, "I'm sorry." Time collapsed. The memory crashed into her like a wave. The cold sheets. The silence. The two pink lines. She couldn't breathe. Darius blinked slowly, recognition dawning across his face like sunlight breaking through clouds. His eyes dropped from her face to her belly. She instinctively pulled her handbag in front of it, but it was too late. His jaw tightened. "You," he breathed. "It's you." Anita stepped back. "I didn't know," he said, hands raised, like she was a frightened animal. "I swear to God, I didn't know it was you." She didn't speak. I thought maybe I'd imagined you. That night, you were so out of it. I didn't realize." "You didn't remember my name," she said, barely above a whisper. "No," he admitted. "But I remember your face." Her grip on the paper bag faltered. "You're pregnant," he said softly. Anita swallowed hard. Her body tensed. "It's none of your business." He nodded slowly, but something behind his eyes shifted. Thoughtful. Calculating. She turned to leave. "Wait." She paused, hand already on the doorknob. He spoke gently now. No command. Just curiosity, and something else she couldn't place. "How far along are you?" She glanced over her shoulder, just enough to let him see the guarded pain on her face. 3 months. His eyes widened slightly. 3 months. The timeline snapped into place. The club. The hotel. The night neither of them could fully forget. "Anita," he said, finally remembering the name. Her lips trembled at the sound of it. Not from affection, but from the unbearable weight of being seen. "I didn't come here for you," she whispered. "I came here to do a job. That's all." "I know." He stepped forward slowly. "But what if I told you I want to make things right?" She stared at him, eyes burning. "You think you can?" He didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, really looked. Not as a stranger from a night he regretted, not as a mistake to be erased, but as a woman who stood in front of him with fire in her chest and life in her womb. Maybe for the first time, he saw the full truth. And she didn't care if he did. She turned the knob. But before she left, she said one last thing, voice quiet but steady. "You may have forgotten me, but I remember everything." Then she was gone. And Darius stood there, frozen, staring at the spot where she had been, his heart pounding as if he, too, had just woken up from a long, strange dream. We have come to the end of part 1. Stay tuned for the continuation of the story. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.